Both sitting at 3-1 going into round 5 and trying to avoid that 2-loss record so that they can make their way towards the top 8 here in the penultimate round of Swiss at the PTI.
Very important round over here. Again, you cannot lose this round. You have to convert here. So both players essentially playing for their tournament lives in this case. This is Johnny E on the Katsu the Wanderer versus Bryce H. We've already seen Bryce today play as Iyslander, and this is going to be a matter of pristine timing for Iyslander because Katsu is going to be laying it on very thick. You have to make sure that you are timing those disruptive effects. Blizzard is obviously going to be a backbreaker, Channel Lake Frigid as well, but it's when you have something in your arsenal like an Ice Bolt Blue or an Aether Hail Blue, when does that one single Frostbite matter most? Bryce needs to time that impeccably in order to just keep Katsu at bay here. As you can see, this is his personal hell.
Yeah, it is actually a very good encapsulation of how this can sometimes feel from the Katsu perspective. And it looks like he's running the AB3, only has one Harmonized Kadachi, and instead just carrying out that Marvel Lantern. Beautiful, like a cold foil extended art. I don't think it's actually considered a Marvel, but he's got the breaking scales as well, and that's a very good piece in this matchup because it's going to ask the question a lot of Bryce to say whether or not you want to block this +1 on specific attacks. And drawing up as both players begin on turn 0. Oh, he's going to send it. He's going to say poke you for 1.
Yeah, starting with the Kadachi, pitching the Dishonor Blue to floating over here. Yeah, on to see a Katsu without 2 Kadachis. He's got a Kadachi and the flashlight here to hopefully just keep him up and running. Now, there's going to be a lot of blues, I think, in this list. He's probably packing every single one that he's got in order to easily pitch away 1 blue to block 3. Again, the Arcane Lantern from, was that from Everfest as well? I think that was an Everfest card, yeah. And he's it's the beautiful full art version cold foil as well, and lovely looking card, but he's got the Null Rune robe and the Tide Flippers. That's an uprising card.
Yeah, Tide Flipper is going to allow you to have 1 more AB at your disposal. Covering up with Icebind, a really good card in this matchup, and one that you don't see in every single matchup, but probably included here. And same thing with McGinty Release as well. And that's going to be covered up with a Sink Below. I think you pointed this out at the beginning, and it was a fantastic point and one that I was thinking about as well. This is a matchup of inches, and can Bryce find that moment where he's got something like a blue frosting in Arsenal and the possibility creation of 1 single Frostbite that could completely stop a turn for Johnny? I think if you see that, these little tiny moments and these tiny effects of disruption possibly blowing out Johnny, that would be like the key moment of the game.
Yeah, I think you're right. Arcane Lantern possibly was Dynasty. So Drifter Comic, I think, was I believe that was the case.
I don't believe so.
Maybe not. It doesn't matter. You know what it's not? It's not a blue unmovable, which can be pitched to as for Arcane Barrier. Nonetheless, here's an Insidious Chill established by Bryce. Big start to the game. I think, again, this is the second time that Bryce has actually opened up his game with an Insidious Chill on the board.
That's exactly correct. Finding Insidious Chill in the first turn of the game again. We saw it in that max game, and I believe it was round 3, and now we're seeing it again here. Now, in round 3, it lived on the board for quite a long time before we got the value off of it, but managing to find those moments where you did get the value sealed the deal in the game, and sending out the Kadachi yet again. Indeed, it was. Arcane Lantern was from Everfest. I know because I purchased it for slightly too much alongside of a Valda cold foil as well.
Beautiful cards from both players here, but ultimately Bryce is going to have a lot more opportunity to fuse certain cards because cards like Brain Freeze, I think, are going to be incredibly potent against Johnny here. Now, there are cards like Descendant Gustwave, Bonds of Ancestry, things like that do not have 0 cost. So they will be immune. But here's one of those big backbreaking plays, as we mentioned, Blizzard. It's going to create the Frostbite. There's no fuse on this, but it is going to say pay 2 or lose go again. And beyond that, after all said and done, you still got the tax of the Frostbite that you got to pay through. So Johnny is already feeling the freeze from Bryce.
This is round 5 of 6. The Frostbite's most likely going to resolve here. And interesting little kind of point to talk about is the Blizzard was coming from Arsenal. That is an instant and can be played from the hand, but it was the card chosen to place in the Arsenal, which means we don't have the activation of a Waning Moon or anything like that available to us simply because we haven't played a non-attack this turn, but we still get to try and stymie the turn. And there's the block on the Descendant Gustwave.
Oh, Bryce is holding on to another one of those backbreaking plays. We're talking about some of those really potent sort of stoppages, which is Channel Lake Frigid. Bryce holding on to one in hand. You can best believe that he wants full value off of that card. He's going to have it in Arsenal whenever he can, but he's going to start with an Ice Bind fused with a Blizzard. And oh man, he's finding all of these really difficult cards for Johnny to sort of muscle through. Blizzard, Channel Lake Frigid. There's already an Insidious Chill established, and now an Ice Bind that he has to deal with.
Just buying so much tempo in a matchup that's razor thin on the side of the Katsu, where they don't want to pitch extra resources. They want to just play their hand. He's just going to start with a Chill trigger, discarding a red Flick Flack on that. Red Flick Flack, a fun little introduction to the deck based on assuming that your opponent's playing a Iyslander list, and then he's going to pitch the Blizzard to send the old Waning Moon damage on, over, and across. He's going to pitch some AB to stop that and basically just say, yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to really do anything on my turn. After all is said and done, because you have so much disruption, I'm just going to play for another turn after this.
A lot of the thought process here against decks like Iyslander, whenever you're getting hit with something like an Insidious Chill that's taxing you, oftentimes you just discard a red. It's better to do that. You do not want to see that card on the comeback, especially in more control-y, grindier matchups. Now, Katsu is looking to maybe not even see second cycle, so it's not even that big of a deal. But I don't think Flick Flack's ever going to get much value in this matchup, so just get rid of it. You don't want to see it. If you do happen to get a second cycle, you do not want to draw into a Flick Flack in a turn where you might be dead to arcane damage.
It feels like one of those great cards to find just at the right time, and then otherwise you just use it for max value for whatever you can get it for. And in this case, the max value was discarding it instead of trying to pay 2 resources onto that Insidious Chill trigger. If you just luck into drawing it on a turn where they send Wounded Bull, or in this case, Fyendal's Fighting Spirit, which is in this list, then you just feel good about that, and otherwise you just find a time to use it. And just evaluating value is a huge thing in card games.
All right, well, we're going to set this Channel Lake Frigid up the old-fashioned way on his own turn. Bryce not trying to steal an extra turn off of it, but it's going to catch a flow counter. There's the one floating as well. What's the follow-up over here? Because the Channel Lake Frigid does have a go again. So we're going to see he's kind of just sort of waffling in terms of what he wants to do. It looks like it's just going to be a Waning Moon for 2 with 2 floating here. There's not much else that you can do here. So he's going to provide change at the end of the day. He's actually just got a little extra resources to play with that aren't going to go nowhere.
He has so much disruption in the first couple of turns that he's actually doing what is oftentimes considered a less value play, and that's a big pitch of a Razor Reflex. That is a scary kind of like a psyops play. But we're going to get the Channel Lake Frigid trigger, but this, because the action point was still there, we had the capability of kind of starting with the Waning Moon and asking for a pitch into it, and then we follow up with a nice little Aether Ice Vein to push, an Aether Hail to push 4 damage.
Oh yeah, I mean, Razor Reflex, Flick Flack. Look at all these sort of blasts from the past cards. Red Razor Reflex was something that you always kept in the back of your head when you were playing against something like Katsu, and suddenly Red Razor Reflex makes a reappearance as a pitchable card. But down to 38 goes Johnny. Both players just kind of very slowly poking away at each other. But, I mean, Johnny here knows that his turn is going to be quite expensive. He's pitching 2 now for a Kadachi.
Something you don't often see is a heavy, hefty tax on the Kadachis there. But floating 1 resource, 1 card in hand, asking if there's any responses, and just going to pass after that, taking the 1 and then passing on over to Bryce with a 4-card hand plus an arsenal. 2 chill triggers still available, and the hope to keep the Channel Lake Frigid alive for another turn. Oh my gosh, and he's bought himself yet a more tempo to establish an Insidious Chill number 2, and he could set up for just like a pseudo OTK on a turn if he can get his opponent a little lower.
Well, here we go. I mean, all things coming up. Bryce here is basically the Channel Lake Frigid is going to survive for another turn. I believe he has a Blizzard still in his back pocket if he needs it for the future. But for now, he's just saying, all right, well, another Insidious Chill and a little poke damage. And the second that I have a fusible thing like an Aether Ice Vein, you are absolutely gooned big time here as 2 flow counters on the Channel Lake Frigid.
Yeah, he pitched the Blizzard earlier, so it's cycling around the deck, ready for him to use, like you mentioned, and that's gonna, if he gets back around to that portion of the deck, gonna save some of that disruption for later in the game. And he's got the arsenal set up, he's got a 4-card hand, he's taxing his opponent, just really threatening at any moment to fuse something at instant speed from the arsenal and just say, yeah, your hand is gone, you have nothing left to do. And this is a good start, paying 3 for a Surging Strike. Threatening 4 damage, but man, he's going to have to continue to pay a lot. And this is a tough matchup for Katsu in a tough spot to be in.
Well, what else can he really do here? I mean, you're opening with the Surging Strike. Maybe you've got like a Descendant Gust Waves after this, which comes in for free. But the free is not really free when you got to pay the 1 for the Channel Lake Frigid, which is such an ominous card. Again, Tales of Varia and another Channel Lake Frigid.
Well, he's found them all, and it's all coming up Millhouse on the side of Bryce, which is unfortunate. And there's the 3 Waning Moon paired up with that Spring Tunic resource so that you can do everything off the axis of a blue. Is a very efficient play, and doing this in response to the Surging Strike for 4 damage, and Bryce feels so content, just sitting back, relaxing, maxing out cool, and firing up all that stuff.
Well, if you want to shoot some b-ball outside of the school, you're going to have to pay a hell of a lot to do so, because there's so much here that you got to bust through. You got you've got this bad boy right here that's going to cost you 1. That's going to cost you 1. That's going to cost you 1. And the second that Bryce gets a little room to breathe here, he's going to absolutely blast you out of the sky. It is incredible just how much disruption. Now, the question is here, it's not merely about the disruption of this existing right now, but how much can this exist over time? Because it looks really imposing, and it looks like almost unwinnable from Johnny's perspective when this is on the board, but this is not going to last forever. The Channel Lake Fridges are going to thaw out. Johnny will eventually get some room to maneuver here. So is it maybe Bryce is just getting a little too heavy on the disruption early on here?
It could also be that Johnny has pivoted to sort of a fatigue plan. I mean, this could be the plan from the start. He could be thinking, well, let me try to weather the storm and have just this critical mass of blues in deck, and play these flick flacks so that I can stop Bullander stuff and try to just protect myself with AB3 as much as possible. But the problem with that strategy is that Iyslander can set up these chills, set up these triggers where they make you pay through the chill effects, and then hit you with some crazy amounts of damage, particularly if Frost Hex is in there, which would be a dangerous play, but might pay off dividends, or if they're playing the Freezing Point tech. And we already did see Icebind, which is something you don't necessarily always see as a 0-cost 3 damage fuse target. But if they're playing the huge Freezing Point combo, then you can threaten like 20 damage in a turn.
Well, down to 36 now. Bryce at 29, a Waning Moon again. Tell me if you've heard this one before.
Yes.
Drawn back up. You have. Yes, absolutely you have. Okay, well, Johnny hasn't had much room to breathe here, but it's going to eventually shift. It's going to change because 2 Channel Lake Fridges are now, well, one's gone, one's still existing, another's around the corner at some point. 1 Blizzard's been played as well. So Johnny's just saying, like we mentioned at the beginning of this, there's Channel Lake Fridges and Blizzards are going to be exceptionally difficult to work around. But in his hand, he's got another Blizzard.
Yeah, that's the 3rd Blizzard in circulation. He pitched one earlier, which is good to do for late game. And this does look like it's going to be going the distance so far. And so he's got 1 in hand right now. He's got 1 circulating in the deck towards the bottom of the deck. That's about 2, 3, maybe 3, 4 turns ago. So if we're pitch stacking that, which would just be incidental at this point, you're looking at that in maybe about 8 turns or so. But it's there, looming large as a possible blowout play and a Frostbite generator.
Johnny just witnessing, oh no, this is going to be brutal. Okay, this is going to cost you multiple cards from your hand. This unassuming Brain Freeze, this common from Everfest, is going to get fused here. So the first trigger, Insidious Chill. Second trigger, Insidious Chill. And once all that's resolved and well, then you get to look at the hand and take something out of it. So I think what Johnny wants to do here is probably just get rid of his zeros and a wave to these Insidious Chills so that the Brain Freeze has nothing to really mess with.
Now, this is not a lot of value that you're getting off Insidious Chill because your opponent's at such high life and you're not kind of pressuring them with arcane damage on the backswing outside of like a Waning Moon trigger. And so it's an interesting like early game, and I still call this early game. It's an interesting early game play. He's going to pitch 1 Whelming Gust Wave, discard an even bigger than that, and then just say, yeah, I don't have a hand. Now you got to deal with this 1. But that's not a ton of value that you're really getting out of these chill triggers. And one of them's already down almost to breaking point of just 1 trigger left. And all of this disruption, what is it actually netting you?
Basically, you read my mind here. And, I kind of alluded to it early. If you're going super heavy, if you're laying it on this thick with the double Channel Lake Frigids and all that stuff, the Insidious Chills, I mean, it's hard to sort of be disciplined enough to be like, you know what, I have it. I can play it. Do I just let it go? I mean, sometimes you play it because you just want to keep your Channel Lake Frigid up. But yeah, you're really top heavy in this matchup because Johnny's still at 31. And once all that disruption's gone, you're giving Katsu a free pass to just do all of his nonsense. And what do you have left? Well, You might have something like a blue Aether Ice Vein from Arsenal that you can fuse, but if your Insidious Chills are gone, there's no triggers because he has AB3. He can just block it out if he needs to. So this is definitely looking really one-sided right now, but give it a couple turns. This will change.
Now, my thought is that we have not seen many Aether Ice Veins yet, and if we're playing the rainbow of them with 3 reds, yellows, and blues, then we'll draw into those eventually and just combine them for our own disruptive turns, even if we've lost the Insidious Chill triggers, and that can do enough to slow some things down on the Katsu side, but that is perhaps the one of the big saving graces going on right now. Nevertheless, still in commanding control is Bryce in this game.
Well, you know what they say, Heart Stars, Horseshoes, Reds, Yellows, Blues, Aether Ice Veins end, swing with Waning Moon.
They sometimes do say that.
They do say that sometimes, yeah.
Speaking of fusing, we have the fuse of the Brain Fuse Blue again, and we're going to reveal, hey,
hold on there.
Oh, you got to do the trigger first.
Exactly. It's like, hold on a second. Yeah, this is the first you have to pay the built-in gratuity of the Insidious Chill, and then you get to tip.
Oh, is he going to overpitch? I love this. So he's going to pitch the red, and then the blue to float 2. And he's pitching away. Both of them are 0 costs, and he's got the Burdens of the Past tech. Got to add those extra blues in, and Bryce goes, that's a card that exists? What the heck is Burdens of the Past? Who even plays that? We'll just, I don't know, get rid of that card. Forget that thing.
Okay, well, Waning Moon. Here we go.
Yep.
Make it happen.
Now, I believe he does have 2 floating here. He's not represented, but I think there are 2 floating so that he can pay into 2 of that into the AB3 that he has total, and maybe even just sink that last card.
So you were spot on when you mentioned, like, what is this netting you? Despite all this disruption, despite shredding the hand completely, Johnny's still at 28. There's definitely a lot to be done here. So I'm wondering if Bryce is just he might just be doing this because you said he hasn't found the Aether Ice Veins. You'll have to just pop this and keep the game in sort of stasis until he finds those Aether Ice Veins, red and yellow. The blues are going to be kind of negligible, but he's already burnt through an entire Insidious Chill, and he's got 14 damage to show for it.
He's going to pitch the Warmonger's Diplomacy, floating 2 resources to say, Kadachi, what would you like to do? And let's see if Bryce continues the onslaught of disruption here. At this point, he's going to get to this point where he needs to start dealing damage. And I think it's simply because he has not found any of those Aether Ice Veins that we haven't seen that much, actual pressure from the life total onto the side of the Katsu players. So we're gonna cover up this Kadachi with Sink Below so that we can play around the Razor Reflex we saw earlier. Clearly, that's the play, but I think he's looking at his hand going, where's all my damage? I'd like some of that, please, and thank you. Cycling his hand, trying to find something. The more he shuffles, the more likely he is to discover something new about his hand. And here, drawing up, we've got Ancestral Empowerment, we've got E-Strike, we've got another Burdens of the Past, and a Fluster Fist. Is that a blue or a red? It's probably irrelevant because, let's be honest, Brain Freeze number 3 might be on the way soon.
Well, there's 2 out of the way. Again, a lot of these very efficient disruption cards are kind of by the wayside. Johnny's still holding pat at 26. He hasn't really done much. He's poked with a Kadachi once or twice. He's Magenshi released on turn 0. But here it comes. This is the first major attack on Johnny's life total. It's going to be a 5-spot red Aether Ice Vein. No fuse, though.
Oh, very unfortunate. Now, this just means that we can AB3 with impunity, and I think they're both realizing the same exact thing we've been talking about, is Bryce is just not throwing damage, and he's not finding his cards in the order that he wants, and he's not necessarily sculpting the hands. He's just playing the hands that he's dealt. Sometimes you just play the hands you're dealt, but in this scenario, it would behoove him to combine these and get the full effect. But then again, he also probably wants that chill trigger up too. You could think about that as well.
That's definitely an option as well. I mean, it's certainly an option, but you got to think that at a certain point, and here it comes, like we mentioned earlier, it's turn 6. The Insidious Chills are gone. 2 of the Channel Lake Frigids are gone. Some Blizzards have been used. The Brain Freezes are kind of like a memory now.
I think
Johnny's ready to go.
I think Johnny's playing this like a Guardian. I think he sat down and he said, you know what I am? I'm a Guardian now. I'm going to play as a Guardian. I'm going to play damage on the stack, and then I'm going to keep as many blues in circulation as possible. And I'm just going to make you make the wrong decision of playing all your disruption to try and slow my quote-unquote Katsu game plan down. I'm going to be a Guardian. I'm just going to throw 7 at you. I'm going to throw 1 at you. I'm going to make you waste your time. And here's an interesting play. Emeritus Scolding for 4 coming across from the Arsenal.
Okay, so this is another hefty damage piece. Again, Emeritus Scolding blue. in the face of a 7 attack Enlightened Strike. And you're right, Johnny's opting here. He's like, I don't need to go again. I just want to basically hang tight and hold some blues in hand to weather the storm. I think that Johnny actually is in a great position right now, having seen a lot of those disruption effects, having worked his way through it. If he could just hold on to some of that life total, eventually counting up the red Aether Ice Veins and seeing the Insidious Chills gone, he'll be like, all right, there's not a whole lot that you can really blow me out with.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get a free pass, and we're gonna start working our way through.
I wonder if Bryce has sussed out his overall plan now. Unfortunately, Johnny would have loved to have pitched a blue there and just stop some of that damage, but he didn't have the capability because he was holding onto Ancestral Empowerment, which is a red, and instead of revealing that knowledge, he just held onto the card. Here's the first Aether Ice Vein fused, and this is the kind of thing you want to do. This chill trigger finally goes. He's going to force the discard. There's that Ancestral Empowerment from earlier. He's going to float and pay and stop with Arcane. Is he going to do the standard blue strategy of AB1 and then pay the 2 for the disruption? Let's see. He has a 0-cost Fluster Fist in hand. If that's a red, that might just be an easy establishment onto the board on your own turn.
Cards in hand, 0.
All right, no cards in hand for Bryce. He's just saying he's going to have that Cold Snap in the arsenal, which is a great card to have as well. That's a freeze your arsenal type of card, as well as a draw one.
Yeah, I think he's gonna AB3 here, take 1, and then pitch to it as a blue Fluster Fist. Okay.
That'll be it for me. I will.
Beauty.
Hey, I have 1 floating.
Yes, he has one
float.
That is correct. There it is. 1 card in hand, 1 in arsenal, tucking to the bottom. This maintains a life total of 19, if memory serves correct. I believe he was at 20 before. Now he goes to leaks 1. Is that correct? Either way, he's going to pitch the blue and send the Harmonized Kadachi floating 2. And there's the Cold Snap. This is going to replenish the hand. It's going to draw him 1 from arsenal. It's also going to create a Frostbite, freeze the arsenal, and allow him to fire off the Waning Moon for 3 total.
This token is going to represent.
Yeah. I mean, sideways is probably good enough.
Okay, so he's allowing it to be frozen. It's perfectly fine. In this case,
There we go.
There we go. Gotta show this the correct sleeve. This is my hell. Covering up because that card is frozen in arsenal.
I will.
as it stands now, the Waning Moon is representing 3. The card was drawn. The Frostbite is, in fact, still active here. All those, I believe, have been resolved. It's just now up to the Waning Moon to be resolved, whether he wants to pitch through it. But looks like
he AB2'd there, so he went down to 18. He had 19 before, so he took the 1, like you said.
Yeah.
And there's the dagger.
Kadachi. Bryce at 21 opting to, or just thinking about how he wants to respond to this. It's just 1 damage, but again, everything counts here. Down to 21. Johnny has weathered a hell of a storm early on.
Yeah, your decision was pretty easy. I will.
Trying to decide how he wants to play this out because he's drawn like in this strange way, and he's just been playing this matchup as if it were a normal Katsu matchup. But clearly, the sideboarding done by Johnny has indicated that he's not playing this traditionally. He's playing it from a defensive standpoint. And if you're a traditional aggro deck and you sit down at the table and you side in all of your defensive tools, and your opponent sides out all of their combo tools, well, you might be able to find your way to a win, and that's, I think, what Johnny's trying to do. It just depends on whether or not Bryce can cobble together 18 damage on arcane points.
Cool. That's it.
Okay, well, is that 2 Sync Belows that have met at Kadachi now?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Playing around the Razor Reflex again. Just kidding, everyone. I'm just kidding.
I mean, sure. I guess Bryce just wants to get rid of these cards as fast as possible and sort of just continue onward looking for those fusibles, those ice cards to mix with those Aether Ice Veins.
And I just want to point this out, too. I mean, he's sided out a lot of the cards, or sided in, I should say, a lot of the cards that allow him to be defensive, but look at his hand right now. I mean, he has Snatch. He has, like, some of these bigger kind of swing cards, the ones that you would think are more aggressive in nature. There's Bonds of Ancestry, so he can still play aggressively, but he has a lot of blue and yellow pitch cards, which means he's a little bit more insulated with that AB3, and here he's looking at Aether Ice Vein. Probably going to try to cover this up as much as possible.
That is it.
Red Aether Ice Vein for 5, fused with an Aether Hail. That's probably destined for that arsenal for sure. Johnny's trying to think here. I mean, there's always the opportunity to just AB1 and then pay the tax of 2, keeping 3 cards in hand. The other opportunity here is to AB3 and then dunk a card.
I think he's going to probably AB 3 and then pay 2 and then send something innocuous like another dagger or that snatch for 4. Just something that puts damage on the stack, but tries to keep everything in front of him. Kind of like what you described, like liking to do as Bravo. Is just keep that control, like keep everything in front of him.
It's like kind of just also a matter of keeping the cushion there, but
Wow.
it seems like he's just going to.
Oh,
Okay, so he's gonna actually AB the 1 and then pay, and so he might have something that he wants to do. Maybe it's another E strike. Who knows what it is?
I think he's valuing that blue in hand so that he can play defense on his own turn because he knows that the arsenal is going to be an Aether Hail. It also lets him do this pitch there, and he's holding on to a red snatch. I see him kind of feathering that card. This does have go again, so it does give him the capability of kind of jamming this out there, but he's at a precarious life total now.
This is a very interesting way to do this, but nonetheless.
Got some really low to the ground, zero cost fuse targets that can be kind of popped out there with Storm Striders, and this is going to threaten 2 and the Frostbite.
Yeah, and you got to pay through this, right? That's definitely what you got to do. Aether Hail, 4-2. You can actually clean this up, but then you won't have anything to pay for that snatch. So this might be an AB1 and leaving the 1 up in order to pay for the snatch.
I think he plays super defensively. Yep,
No,
he's going to do it.
So he's taking the 1.
I worry that this does not put him in an advantageous position because his opponent's about to go back to his turn with the Tunic up on 3, arsenaling like a spell, and he's at 10 in this line. This line is a dangerous threat, and I don't think Bryce is going to care at all to let a snatch hit here. He's just going to say, that's fine. You can take a card. Your arsenal's already taken up. And
that's what I'm thinking here. This is what's really curious about this is the fact that the snatch just becomes vanilla damage when your arsenal is completely occupied, and you don't have something like Snapdragon Scalers to actually get some extra value off of the snatch. Nonetheless,
yeah, I feel like this is a rough line to take because he just looks at this and goes, yeah, that's fine. I'll take 4, and you can draw a card and have it, but then I can fuse in like an Icebind on my turn and then arsenal something. He can even just value block here. I mean, he feels like very much in the driver's seat at this life total and finding some of these key red cards. If he draws into Aether Ice Vein, he's just going to just knock him. There's Encase.
Encase in front of this. I mean, there's always a situation. I mean, we haven't seen any. Is this a heavier arcane build? We haven't seen any of the physical attacks here.
Well, he was running it in the previous matchup, but I think he may have sided it out in favor of this. And he's just going to play Icebind. Icebind comes across for 3. It's just 3 damage. It asks for a blue. Otherwise, it puts you into some bad lethal ranges. And if you're not holding on to a blue, which, oh no, it doesn't look like he is.
There's no fusion.
Oh, there's a yellow plus a red. It didn't. Yeah, that's a rough place to be.
Well, I mean, he could just be bluffing the no fusion. I mean, that's completely possible. But
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, this might be a situation where he wants if he's presenting the fact that he's got nothing he can play from Arsenal, he's maybe saying to Johnny, yeah, go for it. Use all your hand because you think I don't have something I can play from Arsenal, so I can't mess you up. But in this case, Johnny going for just a 7. Off of the E strike, opting for the +2. He's going to put a card under the deck to part of the cost to play this card, but it's 7 physical. Nothing ultra threatening here to Bryce, but Bryce doesn't want to give anything. There is Ice Eternal.
He's going to just throw it out of there. He's going to get rid of it. He didn't want to do any special dance with it. He's just going to get that gone, get that out of there, and then send on over some Waning Moon damage. Get him even lower. Take some damage himself.
Then I will
Set up a 2-turn lethal, perhaps.
I'll say no box.
Sure, go to 12.
All right, well, Bryce goes down to 12. Waning Moon brings Johnny closer to the edge, and now we become a little bit more wary of the Storm Striders because that in conjunction with something like Emeritus Scolding Blue can put a short end to this, to Johnny's dreams of making this PTI top 8.
Yeah. This is going to come across for the casual 1, but this opens up the possibility to Waning Moon here, which we're going to see that happen. That leaves us 1 card, which we want to drop into the arsenal and set up a deterministic lethal, perhaps. We're forcing cards out of the hand on our turn so that we can do so on Johnny's turn and try and win the game.
Not what you wanted to see.
Yeah, not an easy situation here, and even though some of the the philosophy here for a Katsu player would be, hey, just go sort of balls to the walls and go full throttle here. You can't always do that because we've seen just what Bryce was capable of shutting this down.
Striders.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't even have to Storm Striders in that. He just had the Emeritus Scolding in the arsenal, just threw it out there along with the 3 damage from the Waning Moon. It was over and done with.